Hi there, YouTubers and tuberettes and all y'all. Hey, short talk in the park. I'm actually in the park today, so wouldn't want to lose that franchise. For getting to employ my own invention. Have some young whippersnapper come up and steal the idea. Except I don't know how a young guy would do talks in the park with an old guy without an old guy hanging around. By the way, I'm gonna have to shout a little bit, so I'm gonna elocute, as it were. Elocute? No. Anyway, pronounce or something. Very purposely, because I know there's a wind here. It's not stout, but I know on this microphone it loves to kind of go flutter, flutter, flutter. So I'll attempt to, and by the way, I think there might be a closed caption option by the time this thing's published. How would I know? At least most videos do. So anyhow, it's funny, some of them don't. Why is that? Anyway, I just wanted to give you a short talk at the park with an old guy. This is a Wednesday, and we're taking the day off. First of all, I haven't seen a day like this in months and months. It's this really nice rain. If you'll listen, I don't know if it'll come through, but I'm under a metal roof, and I like that sound. Let's just try to listen. I can hear it, but I don't know whether that translated into the mic. It's very subtle, but sometimes if you're here during a downpour, I mean, you can't even hear yourself think hardly. It's just overhead you, on top. But it is dry, unless, of course, the wind is blowing, so there's no walls around it. But anyhow, I do like coming out and just sitting at this table, this covered, there's another table just like it over there. And next, there's some kiddie, equipment. Little guys can jump up and down and play on them. Yeah, sort of like modern architecture, I don't know. Go crawl around. It's like monkey bars. Used to be. Anyway, I think monkey bars were a little too dangerous, so they're trying to make everything kid safe. Well, okay, as long as it's got to have at least an idea of danger, or little kids aren't going to be interested. Your mother says, don't touch that, it's hot. Guess what the kid's going to do? Why? You said it's dangerous. I'm going to go find out. The little kids are that way. So I'll try to remember to speak up. And Mr. Wind, it isn't bad out here at all. It's so comfortable, it's so nice compared to what we've been having, that 98, hovering in there somewhere. But even that was a break from like a week or two before. We were cruising at 106, 107 for weeks and weeks. And so I think we might already maybe be cooling down a little bit, we hope. So what I wanted to talk to you about this day, oh, by the way, we did do short talks in the park with the old guy. We got all that out of the way. No, I don't know how to do any of the link to forward stuff. Go figure it out. I'm an old guy. I don't even want to know how this cyber junk works. It was amazing, actually, that I got this station started. I couldn't have done it without help from young people. I couldn't understand what they wanted. The only computer I own and probably ever will own is this phone right here, except when I break it and got to get a new one. But anyway, there's a candidate out there on the national market that I think it was a week or two ago. I listened to an interview between him and Tucker, and I remember being impressed. This boy's got a lot upstairs. And somehow it just kind of fell off my radar again, and I don't know why. But I was just perusing vids today, it had nothing to do. I decided to go get some breakfast later. But, by the way, biscuits and gravy can be pretty good if you'll just add green chili. Get civilized. I still feel that there's too much of my head floating here. I'm going to try lowering this little stand gizmo a little more. I don't want to look down on you, but I don't think you want to see that much above me. I don't know, I'm just trying to get centered, Let's remember, this is an amateur production. Anyway, the candidate's name, this guy is out of the park, man. There's nobody in the field even in the same race with this guy, except potentially Robert Jr. Jr. has similar capacity to think on his feet, and he's deeply lucid and has a pretty darn good grip on reality and on history and what happened. And why? Well, this character here, he's got a Hindu and an Indian name, Vivek Ramaswamy. I believe that's pronounced. I'm just going to call the guy VR, okay? Anyway, VR's got one heck of a presentation. When I was listening, as soon as I listened to it this morning, I don't know how I stumbled onto one of these vids. I guess it was an accident. No, I think maybe time was set aside for me to sit down and hear this guy. I don't remember being excited, so to speak, about a candidate ever I kind of vaguely remember some of the excitement around Bobby Sr., his dad, in '68. Of course, I was only a fifth grader at the time. And a lot of the people linked up with that were kind of new left, I guess you call them the hip generation or whatever. And I never did really get along too well with the hip generation. I always thought those people are lunatics. But at any rate, the same lunatics now are in charge of, the major parties. They're in their late 60s and late 70s even. That crowd of people that was the hip generation is now the man. They are the ones they used to hate. They used to despise the man. Don't trust the man. Now they've become the man. And they're rotten at it. They're horrible, corrupt to the core. And anyway, Ramaswamy is an interesting dude. I mean, it's very rare. Now, the guy's a Hindu, practicing Hinduism. I don't know. Do you practice it Hinduism, or I don't know. But at any rate, I don't understand the basic tenets of Hinduism either, so I'm not going to criticize the guy. But talk about decent. Talk about, and this guy can think on his feet. Ugh. There was an interview I saw with some black woman who was apparently some kind of shill. She's a front put out by somebody apparently. The woman, she's incoherent, absolutely narcissistic, a lunatic. And instead of him blowing up and saying, like bleep, bleep, bleep with your four-letter word, or just shut her up, turn her microphone off, he didn't do any of that stuff. The guy is cool, he's calm, and he's collect. And when he speaks, man, you can tell there's something up there. This boy's got some, and he's standard, he's principled, and he's almost like, in a way, he's almost like, if you can imagine, Superman having, more powerful than a speeding locomotive, can leap high buildings in a single stride, or whatever they used to say in the 50s. Sort of like an ideal strongman. Well, this guy's almost like an ideal politician, but he's never done it before. He's been over here making all kinds of, the guy he reminds me of is Musk. And they might be about the same age, I don't know. These guys are just super effective leaders who just radiate, trust me, I'm going this way. And people follow them. Because they're going somewhere. They're not just standing around going, well, you did that when I did this, but this tit-for-tat crap that just dominates the so-called news cycle. Or today's distortion, or today's, here's a wild story to get you off track and make you forget what's actually happening in Maui right now. Something like that. Or selling children right now. Or, oh my gosh, who knows what they're doing. But anyway, this guy shows some real promise. Will he win? I don't know, because I've only got 2 stumbling points with him. I spent probably 4 hours or more listening to different interviews. Now, he keeps covering the same points. He's very, very consistent in his presentation. He does not get off topic from his perspective. In other words, he's going to stay on his game plan. He is the leader. He's not here to discuss the foibles and problems and the idiocy, but he will mention that, oh, yes, it's real. And these people are responsible for it. Yeah, sure, let's acknowledge the real. But there's 2 things that just... listening to my little ear kind of went, wait a minute, what's that I'm not hearing? And they were both very strange. Such a balanced and reasonable person. One of them is an omission, something he just won't say. These words don't come out of his mouth. He talks about we're going to have to demolish perhaps the FBI because it's been basically weaponized. It can no longer be trusted by the American people. It needs to be, we need to go into certain of these departments and cut out 90% of the so-called, workers, lay off or fire half or more of the federal gravy-trained bureaucrats, just get rid of the Department of Education, stuff like this. And I'm all for that. Sounds very libertarian, and he does have an extraordinary libertarian background. So he and I have some in common there. But libertarian is not the whole story, and he gets that. What bothered me was what he doesn't say. Let's tear apart the IRS. Let's figure out what's going on in these rogue now operations where for money then the FTC and the FDA are being directed to approve certain procedures by, shall we say, financial interest being shown by friendly corporations. They've been sold. So in other words, the drug cartels end up dictating health policy in the United States. It would sound ridiculous if someone said that, wouldn't it? And so what's happening is that we have this corporate merger, which is typically what we mean by fascism. He never at any point that I can't hear him say it anywhere, but now maybe I just haven't listened to enough material, so I don't want to, degrade or slander the guy. The agencies I never hear about, yeah, let's take apart the ATF. What about the mother of them all? CIA, throw in the DIA, throw in the Secret Service. They've all been bought and corrupted. Remember back in '63? Do you? I was just a little boy. I had to learn this growing up. Learned it from history books. But the Zapruder film was cut and spliced and reoriented to supposedly show a projectile hitting him from the rear. They just switched the frames on an old 8mm. Guess who was at the head of that? Hoover, that old pervert. And anyhow, whatever happened back then, the same forces are still at work today, overthrowing and toppling government after government, regime after regime, engaging in these clandestine affairs under black budgets that is accountable to no one. Uncle Jack to our Robert, his Uncle Jack, he said he was going to demolish that organization, and look what happened to him. The same organizations still exist. You can't even trust Secret Service, and I would apply this to RFK as well. Neither one of these men should accept Secret Service protection. Things have gotten that bad, and the powers that be that Vivek VR is addressing, he's valid. He's right on that there is a shadow government. And they're calling the shots, and nobody elected them. And they're on somebody else's agenda. They are not America First. He far excels Trump in his ability to stand and debate in a polite and very lucid and clear fashion. But so in other words, I'm not hearing any plan to demolish certain organizations, namely the heart of the beast, especially with links to huge financial interests overseas, bankers. He does want to reorganize the Fed and have it get back to what it was supposed to be doing all along. But so that's good. But the very idea that there was no hokey pokey going on when thousands and thousands of people around the nation were refused the opportunity to present their evidence, and there was evidence coming in from across the land and in a variety of ways. Some of it showed up as impossible statistical coincidences which occurred, including more votes in certain counties than were registered voters in it. All other kinds of little hokey pokey, like ballots disappearing apparently into dumpsters, and certain ballots being repeated and counted multiple times with videotape backup evidence. And now you're saying there was nothing crooked with 2020. Someone's got an agenda. So I'm kind of torn, you know what I mean? So on one hand, talk about lucid, talk about a real American leader. I've almost forgotten what the sound of leadership even sounds like out of the mouth of a politician. I used to hear it a little bit from Trump. He's okay at it, but it's like in limited doses. And Reagan used to have it kind of on the ball, at least in the early 80s. But really where Reagan was great was in much earlier, in the early 70s, when he was kind of in his stride and as the governor of California. He was a fireball back then. But when he got into national office, first of all, he was getting kind of old, and he's kind of losing it here and there. But, he talked a good game, but he played the same game that they all do. It doesn't matter anyway. There's really only one party. They call them the R's versus the L's or the D's or whatever they are. It's basically just one party. And so this guy stands out. I mean, he's really different. And if I even bothered, see, I'm not even confident there's going to be anything going on in 2024 where I get to drop my little card in a slot somewhere. I don't think so. We'll see about that. I might be wrong. I was wrong one other time. So I'm just shooting off the top of my head, and it bounced off. So I don't want to badmouth the man. I deeply admire. Here's my choices now. Mike, who would be your ideal presidential candidate for 2024? Well, far and away, Vivek Ramaswamy, VR. In terms of being lucid, cogent, and on message, and refusing to play the game. He plays the role of an outsider remarkably well. And I'm actually thinking about trying to find a way to tune in. There's supposed to be a debate, I think, today. This is Wednesday, I think the 18th. I'm hoping I'm on the right day. Anyway, I'll look up the date before I post this because I can scroll down and find it up there. I don't really keep track of the dates in my mind anymore. It's kind of strange. It's like I just quit remembering phone numbers, too, years ago. I used to have 20 or 30 phone numbers in my head. You had to, or I had to have a phone book. Now, I don't think they even print phone books anymore. How weird. But anyway, boy, am I in another world. So I just wanted to think with you today a little bit, look over the candidates, and if you plan on voting, I mean, after that last episode in 20, I posted online, probably on Flossbook, because I know I didn't have a channel then. That's right, it must have been Flossbook. That basically the Republic is dead. Because without voter integrity in the process, getting a legitimate count, and no, the dead will not arise again and vote D. You want to see some crooked politicians, take a look at LBJ and the stunts he was pulling off in Texas elections in the 50s. Look it up. The guy's as crooked as the day is long. Murderer, too. Anyway, I don't want to get off on LBJ. Talk about a contrast. LBJ versus VR? Are you kidding? Oh, it's like night and day. But the only other candidate in the field right now that I'm even really looking at is the one we mentioned earlier. I don't know if he ever goes by Bobby Jr., but his dad went by Bobby, as I remember as a boy. But I wasn't political back then. I was a fourth grader, But the thing is that Bob's got a mind on him. And, of course, I don't agree with him on everything. Who said we have to? But he's got integrity and courage, and that's, I think, matters just a heck of a lot more because he is a natural leader, but not in this charismatic way that poured damage to his voice from a what needle. It messes him up a little, but if people will be patient, the words that come out actually are worth hearing, which is very rare for a politician, very rare. And that's a beautiful thing. Neither is he a politician. Neither one of these guys worked the ladder. Neither one of these guys paid their dues to the machine in order to get where they're at right now. And they're both valid contenders. Of course, Trump's a big favorite with a lot of people because he's a known property. And I, if it came right down to it, I would vote for Trump again. But I don't know that throwing votes even matters anymore. All those decisions are made beforehand by someone who shall not be named because we don't know exactly. But we know the corporate interests. For instance, Dominion was one of the main, not the sole, producers of. You know what we really wanted? We wanted adding machines, old-fashioned adding machines. I added one vote to 236, I get 237. That's where the vote stands. Oh, here comes another vote. No vote on that one. They didn't vote. Okay, stays 237. We just wanted an adding machine. But then we wanted a network of adding machines that could talk to each other. Why do they need to talk to each other? No, just let them talk to a central authority. Bring the information, and we'll collate it. In this and such county or in that and such state, we have accumulated this many votes for that candidate, these many votes for that referendum, these many votes for that bond issue. Therefore, it passes or fails. That's all they were looking for, was adding machines. But these things are programmable, having millions of lines of code, such that you can pre-program the machine. And not only will it win, but it'll win by a known margin. And that known margin precludes calling for a recount. Now, Vivek, or VR, if you can't see that, if you think that the system is still intact, something's wrong with your brain, boy. Wake the hell up. Get in talk with real people who know what's going on and come out of that ivory tower. But other than those two things, what's with the silence on this one golden topic? And because Bob Jr., I was going to call him Bob, President Bob. Wouldn't it be great to have a President Bob? Talk about America now. Have the guy smoke a pipe. But what I do have some cigarettes. I forgot about that. I stuck them in my pocket. You know, it's nice and cool out here today. It's just such a difference. Now, the rain finally let up here, but it's been drizzling almost all day, which it almost never rains like that here. When it comes down in buckets. And if you don't like the weather, just step across the street because it's not raining over there. It's almost like that. But that's what southern New Mexico's like. It's basically semi-arid. It's a desert, but it's not a harsh desert. I mean, there's still plants and mostly, I think, weeds that grow out there. But you know, the beautiful desert flowers, if you can get away from town, get out there where the developers haven't come through with a blade yet and knocked everything down. The little wildflowers that grow out there, especially in the springtime, the colors are just amazing. And these little shiny, happy little blue and yellow faces. They're, you know, like 3/8 of an inch in diameter with a little yellow spot at the middle or white or something. Beautiful little flowers. And I've never bothered to really try to smell them. They're so small. Maybe I could. I don't know. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about this VR guy. He's a once in a lifetime phenomenon. And although I haven't agreed to it, because you can't ask the guy a question on his official site unless you agree to a donation. In other words, I will talk to you and respond to your question if you'll give me some money. In other words, I can't 100% back a guy that won't speak about the CIA. It's the mother of all perversion in a lot of ways. And even foreigners know it. In fact, they know it a lot better than we do. That's for sure. Other folks, especially where their finger has been a little heavy in overthrowing governments. And so the thing is that there's that and this other thing about whether there's any, integrity. Because see, in my opinion, and I'll end with this here for today, there's something that happened in 2016 where I believe that the Hillary was assured of a win. And why? Because they already had that Dominion machine contract in place, and the algorithms were in place for her to win. It didn't really matter what the voting public did, except if there was a massive turnout, really what should have been a landslide victory in electoral terms. There were so many voters for Trump that showed up, they broke the darn algorithm in 2016. That's why they unleashed that tirade of hatred on that man. And it's still going on to this day from the DNC and all their lackeys and all these absurd so-called, we're going to accuse you of, being a zombie, and then we're going to stab you in the heart to prove that you're dead. What? So in other words, it's just so one-sided and wrong. But he's held up wonderfully under it. I mean, he's still got a sense of humor, and he hits back. But I haven't watched willingly a debate in years. I mean, let's face it, more BS. But I might tune into at least this first one if I can find it somewhere to see how this guy does in a debate. Because I can tell right now, he was a Harvard debate team champ or something. I don't know. This guy can think on his feet. And what he has to say, it comes out so polite and cogent and on target. And he doesn't play around. He doesn't, no kid stuff. He's just really an interesting dude. And like I said, I don't actually remember in my lifetime a candidate stirring the imagination as a leader, except just by virtue I was there at the time physically. JFK. He had, I think, some of that same persona of leadership and courage. And in fact, JFK wrote about courage. Look it up. It's a pretty good book. And he was a decent author, but he probably had one of those co-writers with him, let's face it. I don't know if they did that back then. So get yourself outdoors. And, I was thinking today, after I go home, I got my little tri-stand here. This thing's sitting on. That's why I can wave my hands around, and I don't have to hold the camera. But I was thinking, when was the last time I went for a walk in the rain? I already got my little sweater on. It's not like I'm going to freeze to death. And it's not uncomfortable out here, but I remember days like this in the South. Years and years ago, I was in Georgia in the military, and they used to have rains that would go on like this for days. I mean, it would start drizzling down. You're thinking, okay, nice little rain. At 9 hours later, she's still going. Wake up in the morning, it's still going on. And this thing went on for 3.5 days. And it's like, why isn't this place underwater? But it's a nice rain because the earth can soak it up. Down here in NM, you get one of them thunder bumpers, crash, boom, here come, it's coming down in buckets, you know. Well, them little roads over here, they all turn into rivers, especially Milton here, just behind me. And Milton flows into that's ostensibly a soccer field, but really it's a seepage pit for a rain overflow. And you could tell if you could see it past me, if you had x-ray vision, that there's no puddles showing out there, which is a good sign. That means that the runoff coming down Milton is being absorbed. The plants can actually process it. And so that's a good kind of rain. Good rain, bad rain. Good cop, bad cop. Good politician, the usual. Go out and find somebody you can believe in. And if you can't find one, then you become that one. Okay? You be somebody that someone else can believe in. You be that person that says, I ain't towing the line. I'm going to demand truth. And I'm going to demand integrity. And I'm going to demand that the powers that be held by their own standards of criminality, and that those who are purposely doing evil under the guise of government be punished according to law, and that means jail time or even the death penalty. Yes, sir, I'm for it. I'm waiting for a candidate to come on those lines, but in the meantime, I can see he's far and away. He's in another class by himself. These other guys can't keep up. He's got what it takes. He could very well become, if there were an election in 2020, and if it were a fair election, which are both huge presumptions, he would easily win in terms of capturing the heart and mind of people. Him interacting with wild leftist crazy people, he's just so calm and just keeps them from going flipping out, and still answers their question and doesn't dodge it and doesn't come up with a bunch of cliched junk, double talk manufactured by laboratory testing of, we did a consumer sample and this is what we think they want to hear. So keep repeating these catchphrases. I'm for prosperity and I believe in the future and our children are our greatest heritage, or whatever. Shut up with the cliches. Say something already. And this guy does. So you be like that too. Go look him up. Look on YouTube. No, I'm not going to give you a link down there. You figure out how to go find. It's not that hard. Besides that, I have no idea how to do it. It's great being an old guy. I can come up with that kind of lame excuse around people, and they will actually help me. They'll do that computer ciphering junk, and good for them. So the system that we're looking at here, so infrequently offers a man or a woman of integrity. There's that governor of, I believe, North Dakota, Noam was her name, I think. Now that girl, I like her, I think. I believe she was one of the few governors in the whole USA who had even a reasonably sane position during you-know-what with crooked needles. And I guess they're coming up with another go-round. Somebody's whipping up a new batch. And so they're talking about, we're going to do that whole mask, hokey pokey, and the two-step with the lockdowns and all that stuff, because apparently they decided we need a stronger version. So somebody's whipped up something, I'm guessing. I don't know where it came from. But they're already working up a new magic potion for it, too. They're that good. Amazing, ain't it? Like, if you seriously want to put that in your veins, God bless you, but at least buy an insurance policy for your family. They'll need it. Bye-bye.